This week, I've refinished this mid-century record cabinet. I believe it was originally built in the late 50s. My dad bought it, we think, in the early 60s, and in cleaning out his house, we're seeing things like this, and I decided to refinish this thing because my son is getting into vinyl records, and this will be a great place for him to keep the records. Plus, this mid-century modern look is kind of coming back. So here's a picture of what it looked like before I started. And this is what it looks like now. Let's do the title intro and we'll see how I went through this process. It was pretty challenging. You're watching On the Mark with Mark. Here's the next project. This thing is taking up some room in my garage right now. You can't really see it. We'll get it down to the shop and we'll take a close look at it. My family and I have been cleaning out my father's house, and this is one of the pieces of furniture that has been around my entire life. I believe he had it before he got married, and he was married for 60 years. This is a record cabinet that I don't know if he built it. It kind of seems like maybe he did. I don't see any brands on it anywhere, but it's had kind of a tough life. We had a family cat that liked to sharpen her claws on the front of this. So this is something that I'm going to replace. Now, what this is okay, it's a record cabinet, but look at how nicely this lid fits on here. You can see where the hands have, left dirt marks on here because you grab it from both sides and then it comes open like that. Gotta move it a little bit. And yeah, this thing slammed down on my fingers a few times as a kid. Now, most of my life, this thing was just cram-packed full of albums. In fact, I didn't even recall that there was dividers in there. But there they are, and there's kind of a little bit of a hiding place on that side. But not only is it a record cabinet, which is something people used to have back in the day, but there's a speaker built into the lower part of this. This is, I don't know if you'd call it before stereo or not, but it's a single speaker, so it would have been for a mono system. And I know my dad did have a tube mono, I don't know if you'd call it hi-fi, mono hi-fi, maybe. In fact, it's still in his house. I don't know if tubes last that long. But what happened is my son has a renewed interest in vinyl, and he's going to be moving soon and be on his own, and he needs a little bit of furniture. And so this is kind of a trendy thing, and it's really a timeless design and well made. But his furniture, the little bit he has right now, he's got a kitchen table and chairs, and he has a record player, and all of these items are in a very dark wood. Now, I was thinking about sanding this thing down and just leaving it real blonde looking for a European look, which I thought would look pretty good, but he wants it a dark color. So we're gonna sand this down, and that's what's gonna be so easy. I love sanding flat things. There's almost, as far as details, it's absolutely minimal. I'll be able to take that grill off of there and we'll find some new material to put on it, and I'm gonna be able to make this thing look like new. Now, I'm kind of getting a first look at it, and some of the veneer has chipped off right there. So I'm going to work on fixing that. There's a little bit of a scuff there. Let's see how deep that is. That will sand out, so that's not a big deal. All of this, look, there's crayon. That could have been me. Hard to say. Oh, there's a crack right here. I'll take care of that. A little bit missing down here. I can fix that too. It's not too bad. I don't know if this thing was ever cleaned. Looks like this side looks really good, other than it looks like it had some kind of paint or something got spilled along the side of it. It's been in several different places. I've seen pictures of it in my parents' living room, but growing up, I don't ever remember it being in the living room. With it on the table now, you can see some of the quality workmanship here. I mean, it's got a full piano hinge across the back, but judging by the construction of this, I don't think this is a mass-produced item. I don't see any manufacturer's name. I'm gonna have to look at the bottom of it. I've never seen the bottom. It's got some pretty trendy looking legs, I would say are probably 50s-ish. We'll take those off and those will get stained. I know that some of these little brass parts here, they were falling off, so I'll find a way to glue those on good. So the first thing we gotta do is knock this thing apart. Here is the speaker wire. See, that doesn't look like any kind of a commercial setup. I mean, the wire's just coming through a little hole here. I've got proper speaker mount and like a couple of different kinds of screws here. I don't know if he built it. Somebody built it. This is not store-bought. When was the last time you heard that phrase? Nothing on the bottom. Here's what I think I'll put on the back of this, somewhere around here, and then it has nice places where you can hook up a wire. I'll look around. I think I have several other options. There might be some actual RCA jacks or some other type of a speaker connector. But anyway, the least thing I can do is this. This will look nice. Okay, since it's laying on its side here, this is the record cabinet portion of it, and this is the speaker cabinet portion. So I'm going to take out these screws here. That's nice that it's been left that way so that maintenance can be done here. So we'll be replacing this speaker here. I really don't know that this speaker is bad, but it's 60 years old. So this will be kind of neat. Hopefully, maybe whoever built this has left a treasure in here for me. Boy, they didn't spend any more money on screws than they had to. I mean, these are tiny. Okay, moment of truth. Oh my gosh, there is treasure in here. There's the speaker. Interesting. Let's have a close look. This is what we've got here. Look at the size of the magnet on that speaker. Maybe that is a good speaker. Holy smokes. We've got some playing cards here. It's kind of funny. A little nervous about what this might be. Lloyd's Owner's Manual. Oh my gosh. Look at that. For an old tape recorder. Wow. I think, there's a little bit of a groove, I think. Right there, yeah. Little bit of a groove. That stuff could fall through there. I happen to know my brother had that tape recorder, so he will be very thrilled to get this manual back. That's too funny. Wait a minute. There's a few more playing cards. I don't know, somebody was either cheating at cards or I don't know what they were doing. Look at that, it says right side there, A. I'm pretty sure my dad, well, I guess I can't say for sure my dad, but somebody built this thing. They did a really nice job. I guess I'm gonna have to test that speaker somehow. There's the lid. Got a couple of small shims in there. And this came out and it had a dado in the top. And now there's this. I suspect this is going to slide out. Oh my God. It was just stuck a little bit. Took a little bit to get it moving. But now that it's moving, it's sliding out pretty easy. So there's that piece. This is the front. I always knew this was pretty hard, but look at that. There's the hole for the speaker. I might round that out a little more. But anyway, we'll be able to get that off of there and we can get rid of this nasty, it looks like there's something behind there, some black material or something. We'll see. I can't hardly believe it, but it looks like it is in really good shape. I just can't hardly believe it. We'll still test it. I mean, it's a little dusty, but holy smokes, look at that thing. I mean, it's really old technology, of course. Boy, that's all he had holding it together. All right, well, very interesting. I built this catcher here with a very small overhang on this side. It's got a large overhang here and here. I built it specifically like that so that these back-to-back clamps could clamp onto the side of this table. So it goes like that, like that. Oh, that looks good. All right, now what that allows me to do is now when I need to get to the edge of something like this in order to pry these off, I can take this and I can hang it right off the side. Of my workbench, like that, and that. Now I can work. I made quick work of that with my back-to-back clamps, and I have the, I don't know what the material off, and boy is it in bad shape. But look at how well this was made. Now this has got a piece of screen. You know, it didn't really even need to be over the whole thing, just over that. I guess he wanted it to all look the same, but not only that, he painted this black before he put that on there. So I'm thinking I'm just gonna leave that alone. Probably clean it up a little bit. It's got a little bit of dust in it. Where did he find nails so short? I guess, oh, they're just tacks. Anyway, so I'm going to need to come up with a new piece of material for the front of this. I might take a sample of this in with me. see what they have. This actually has a little bit of like some kind of metal in it. You know, there's like gold pieces in it. It seems very tough stuff, but not tougher than a cat's claws. So that's it. We got it, when I say we, I mean mostly me. I got it completely torn down. Here's the front of it here. The lid is right there. Here's the piano hinge and the front piece. This is what we're going to start on right away, is getting this piece here filled in, which is really going to be nice that it's such a nice small piece I'll be able to handle. The other area that needs attention is not going to be so easy. Yeah, this area right here and here. Mostly the front. Look at that big chip there. But that can be fixed, so we'll take care of that too. And once those pieces are glued in there, then we can start sanding it down. And one of the reasons why I'm so eager to tackle this project is because look at everything is just flat. And my random orbit sander will really make quick work of that. And it's not like it's really rough or anything. It just needs to be cleaned up a little bit. When I hit this with the sander, and might start with 320, we'll see how it goes. That's just going to get freshened up and just look beautiful. We did a nice job of putting that veneer on there. It's a nice piece of furniture. I've got that front edge, which has the place right here that I need to fix the laminated edge in my back-to-back clamps here now. These are mounted now on top of my catcher table. And I'm gonna sand this down just so I can get a really good look at the grain, so that when I find a new piece of wood that I'm gonna lay in here, I can match up the color and, you know, get something that looks like a pretty close match. So I need to change sandpaper. I'm starting out very light here. This is just 120 grit. I don't really want to take off very much material. I just want to see the natural color. So here we go. It is a lot darker than I was expecting. I thought it would get really blonde looking. I'll wet this down and we'll see what we see. Wow. It's really kind of an orangish color wood. Maybe there's still some stain on it, but I sanded on it longer than what I really thought I ought to. The veneer is thicker than a lot of veneers, but it is still a veneer. Huh. Look at that. So if I just put clear urethane on it, that's the color we get. Boy, it's got some real scratches on it there. Boy, I don't know if I dare sand any further or not. Well, this is not what I expected. See that side? That's what I expected. I'll bet this was stained. How does that look? You know, it's not perfect right now, but remember, I am going to be adding a stain to this, and this looks like a pretty good starting point for that right there. This is what I'm going to use. This is cherry. We'll see how it goes. this area of the veneer that's bad here, I'm gonna zip off the whole side of this veneer here, and then I'll glue. That isn't gonna matter, I burnt that. But I'm gonna glue this right on here, and then I'll resize it. I'll come back and I'll cut most of it off, and then I'll come in with a flush cutter and I'll trim it right down to exactly the size it needs to be. All that good. After I glue this on here, we'll end up with something like that on the face. And when I say the face, I mean this is the very front top edge of this cabinet. So this is kind of an important thing that it really look good. I think this is going to work out really well. Now it's standing up a little bit higher than the surface and a little bit below. So after this dries, I'll cut this back down to the original width, and then I'll come around this edge with a flush cutter, and I'll make this look like a piece of laminate that is trimmed perfectly to fit on this. So we'll set this aside and let it dry overnight. I've got the full carcass here. This is sitting upside down right now. You can see where the legs or the feet were attached. And the issues that we have here is this corner is chipped off right here. And a pretty big chunk has been taken out there. This side has that stain or something splashed on it. I don't quite know what happened there. So we got that. So this side here could probably just be sanded and would be okay. The bottom needs to have that chip fixed, that big chip fixed there, and we're missing a big chunk right there. Even off to the side here, that is really gonna be a problem. Boy, I'm gonna glue that little piece back on right there. I better get to that shortly. Okay, so we have this, so I can fix this front edge. Big crack here. Something very traumatic happened to it here. I mean this, look at that, goes clear back to there. I should be able to work some glue in there, but man, that is a long ways there. And then it's hard to see, but there's a big chunk taken out right there. So we've got here 1, 2, 3 pieces here on the front, and 2 pieces of the very bottom edge right there that need to get fixed. And then this side is okay. But I'm tempted to replace that anyway. Maybe not. But if I use my new cherry that I'm gonna glue on there, and if I use the same piece in all 3 places, plus I've already glued up the very front panel, the one that goes down here, which is the top, then the face will all be matching. So I'm gonna tear that off too. And this. The only real part that's a big problem for me is right there. I'm gonna have to think about that a little bit. And I need to glue this little chip back on there, and that'll be fine. That'll sand back off and you won't even be able to tell. The box was not parallel front to back. I don't know if that's going to make a big difference or not when I put it back together, because it's gonna be now. All right, let's unclamp it. Boy, I can barely see where that little chip was now, so that worked really well. This is gonna need a little attention to make that look good, but being in the bottom corner like that, I'm not too worried about it. All right, so here, this is actually the top front. So it's getting this new piece on there. I'm going to attach this to the cabinet before I go trimming this down to just its laminated thickness. This might be getting hard to recognize now. The feet are off of it, but this is right side up. And this is the front piece, and this is the lid that was on it. So this goes back here like that. So what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to worry about the lid right now, but I'm going to attach this front part back on the cabinet before I go about trimming off most of the thickness of this. I just want a very thin piece, like right there, like what's showing there. That's what's going to be left on here. I just glued that big piece on there because I think it's easier to work with. So in order to be able to do that, I need to cut off this extra piece here and this little extra piece here. So I'm going to do that on the table saw. This thing is kind of big, but actually there's a lot to hang on to here, so it's pretty easy to get through the saw. It's not really very heavy. I have it upside down right now. Now before I can mount this underneath of there, I need to get my new laminated piece so that it's flush on the bottom here, so that it matches up with what I just trimmed off there. So I'm going to run that through the saw. Took off a little more than I wanted to. I think it'll be okay. Let's take a look at where we're at here. Veneer's a little thick right now. That's not necessarily bad. Got a little bit of a misalignment here. This will all be fixed easily by sandpaper. I could take another pass at it. Wow, really got a lot of burn there. I could take another pass and trim it a little closer. Trying to decide if that's what I want to do. I think maybe I will just graze it. We'll get a little more off. See, maybe it is a good idea if we have this a little closer to what that was. It's not actually necessary. Okay, now I've got a nice flat surface, the whole front there, and it just looks like a very thin laminate on there, but you saw how I started off with a thick piece and then cut it off. So now I left it oversized a little bit so I didn't have to be exactly perfect with lining it up. So now I'll come in with the router and the flush cutter and I'll trim all the way around the outside and the inside, and then I'll just have a little bit in the corners to trim up with the chisel. All right, that is the majority of the repair work I had to do. I added a little piece down here. Looks like that trimmed out pretty nice. And there was a chip down there that I'm sure it might even be on this side. I cannot see anymore. And I fixed the big divot on the top. So now all I need to do is sand all these flat surfaces and give it a good stain. So time for a sanding montage. Let's see if I can find some good music. Well, it is dark. This is how it's looking. This is a dark stain that I had. I'm gonna have a little touch up to do down here where I didn't get the glue wiped off very well, so that area wouldn't take. Boy, it's really nice looking there, isn't it? That's gonna be nice. And my cherry front matched whatever this wood is up here. Pretty good. Maybe that is a cherry. I don't know. Matches pretty good. I'll probably maybe ding this with some 320 grit tomorrow, just real quick. Boy, that's pretty. And then it'll be ready for some polyurethane. I've decided to paint the legs of this cabinet black. So I've given them one coat of, I'm just using some satin black spray paint on these. I thought the metal turned out really nice. It was silver before, like that. So I'll shoot this probably a couple more times before I finish them off. I'm putting a water-based polyurethane on this. I really like this stuff. This is a clear satin finish. So that'll brighten this up a little bit, but it won't be glossy, which I don't really care for in wood. This speaker cabinet with this speaker in it really didn't get used very much, and partly because this speaker sounded really bad in this cabinet. But I think I know what the problem was. Hear that? Now, it's not a bad idea to have some protection for that speaker. But I think it was actually this screen rattling on there, giving it such a horrible sound. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lay glue all over this thing, like every square inch, and really get this firmed up onto this this front panel here. And I think, if it doesn't sound like that when I get done, then I'm going to call it successful. There's just a bunch of dust on it. Now, ordinarily I would never glue on my table saw, but I don't think there's any chance that I'm going to get any glue out onto the table itself. So I'm going to do it. That glue has sunk through the screen, and I think that ought to do it. I'll rattle it around after the glue dries, and if we can hear anything like it sounded before, I don't know, maybe I gotta trowel the whole thing full. We'll see how it looks. I think maybe this area right here needs a little more. Okay. So that's on the inside. That's where the speaker will be attached. And this is what's going to show up on the outside. So we'll loosen that up, and then we'll be able to stick a blade underneath of there and tighten it down. So that's how that's going to work. Looks a little funky because it doesn't have the grill on the front, but the cabinet itself is coming along pretty nice. So what I'm going to do next, I've got one coat of the water-based polyurethane on. I'm going to hit this with the sander, and I mean I'm just gonna nick it with some 320 grit, which is the finest grit that I have, just in case there's any little bit of dust or something in the surface. I think there's a little piece right there. Anyway, I'm gonna knock all that down, but not enough really to take any of the finish off. And then I'll put a second coat on it. And 2 coats will be some really good protection for this. This should last a good long time and wear really nicely. So that's next. I've painted the brackets that are going to be screwed to the bottom of the cabinet black. They turned out real nice. And I also painted the legs, if you want to call these legs, with the feet. And some of these feet, I mean, this one turned out really nice, but some of them got some pretty good sized cracks in them. But I don't think that's a problem. Plus, I'll probably put the cracked ones to the back. I've got 2 that are perfect, and then 2 that have a split in them. This one has 1 split, this one has 2 splits. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mix up some epoxy here, and then I'm going to lube up the inside of that and put the epoxy in there. I'm going to use some strapping tape here and just strap it shut like that. And wipe off the excess. Got a little on my finger. It's looking okay. And I'm just going to give it a little squeeze this way, keeping an eye on that crack. Don't want to open that up, but I want to see that it does have pressure on it. All right. That looks like it will be good. Okay, 1 down. Okay, the next process I have, this is going to be the cover for the speaker grill here. This is a very light material and you can just blow air right through it. It is a, she called it a backer material. And we got our panel glued. I don't hear that rattly sound anymore. So I think the glue has taken off pretty good. Now, you can see that glue isn't totally dry right here, but it isn't sticky anymore. It has skinned over. So I'm gonna staple this right on here. Like this. Okay, now I'm worried about that. Yellow wood glue stays yellow. I'm gonna paint this. This is gonna have to sit for a little while. All right, we'll give that a little time. After the light sanding, I hope you can see this, but it's got, it's a little bit scuffed. You can see where it's not shiny anymore. And that's just enough to just take this down to super smooth. And if you look closely, you can see where there was a little bit of dirt, dust or something was in the finish, and now that's been knocked off. Now, this coat might have some of that too, but it won't be in addition to what the first coat had. So I'm just gonna hit this one real quick. I intentionally put the last coat of the urethane on with this on its back so that I could put the feet on while this thing is drying. So that is next. That's the first layer. Here's a first look at it. They called this stuff at the fabric store mosquito net. And I'm pretty sure air is going to go through it, and that under layer also lets air go through. So the speaker ought to sound just fine through this material. And I thought it looked pretty neat. So I just got to get this stapled on. Of course, you won't be able to see through that area. It's like this. I think it looks kind of good. And then here's the contrast. I mean, it's going to be the wood. I think I can start putting it together. Okay, now it doesn't have the feet on it yet. Goes on there. Doesn't that look nice? What is that? Looks like I might have to hit it with the sander again and put a little more polyurethane there. Boy, it sure is dark, that's for sure. And then it has black feet. I just have to reattach this little slide mount here. This will be easy. This is one of the good ones. I bought these little feet and they've got like a wool pad on the bottom of them, which works fine for carpet. It certainly won't slide around. Probably end up with a place with hardwood floors. This will protect those hardwood floors very nicely. So I've already drilled a hole in there so that I'm sure I can get a good start here. I'm not putting this in here for any kind of sound reason. You know, I mean, I'm not an audio engineer or something. I'm putting this in there because I don't want this wire laying on the bottom and possibly rattling with the sound. So that's the main reason why I'm doing this. It might have some acoustical effect. I don't know. I'm not gonna claim that that's why I'm putting this in here. Looks kind of neat though. Got them on there. I added this little handle here so that the next guy that opens this thing up has got something to pull on like I didn't. This cabinet is finished. Let's have a look at it. The big reveal in the shop. There it is. I don't think that looks too bad. And you just grab hold up here and then you can get in there. This is where the albums go, and it's got that speaker right here, so you can hook up for mono It's a good speaker, maybe mono hi-fi. Nicely constructed. I don't usually do refinish work. In fact, I kind of hate it. But this piece of furniture was all flat. Everything, I think they call that the mid-century modern, although they do rounded things. But anyway, since this was all flat, I was able to use my random orbit sander to just nick this thing off and get down to beautiful clean wood and be able to stain this and get it to look like this. If this would have had anything more round than these little feet down here, I wouldn't have even attempted it. That is just so tedious. It just doesn't appeal to me. It would really have to be something special to me before I would go after something like that. I'm not saying never, but this one I just knew would be easy. Also, if you recall, I replaced all the veneer that was on the very front edge of this, which was chipped off in several places, including right up here at the very front edge. So that's new wood right there. So I was able to bring this thing back, which is one of the things I like doing, is taking something and modifying it, fixing it. In this case, I don't know if did I modernize it? I don't know, I think I kept the character of it. I really like my new grill here. I guess that's it. I'm gonna make up a wire with some blade terminals on the end, so they kind of go on like that, and then we'll be able to tighten down on this. There's another type that will actually plug right straight into this, but this is the two connections for that speaker. So that's a lot neater. There used to be a hole, well, there's a hole right here. This is where the wire came through. It was just tied in a knot. And then you're expected to, I guess, just twist onto it. But I made a more formal connector for the wiring right there. Almost everything I needed to refinish this cabinet I had in stock. I only bought two things, and that was this fabric here. I bought that at a fabric store for 13 bucks, and I bought the new little feet that are on the bottom here. I think I paid $3.50 for those. But everything else, the stain, the polyurethane, the sandpaper, all of that, the wire, the little terminals I put on the back, everything was stuff that I already had in my shop. I carry a fair amount of inventory here that I've picked up at various sales throughout the years. So a lot of times when I need something, I have to do a little bit of digging, but I can find it.